Stafford going to the end zone, reaching up and making the grab. Odell Beckham Jr. Stafford buys time, protection is good, and so is the pass. Henderson came out of the backfield. Jefferson in motion. Henderson, nice cutback. Stafford rolling and throwing, caught, touchdown. Stafford caught on the run. Cup, who else? Comes out of the slot to the right, looks that way, fires that way. Cup makes the grab at about the 18-yard line. Pass, Cup, got it, touchdown. Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like P-Ron might have had a shot to make the grab, but the Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who? Guess
of course.
I mean, you don't even have to think about it.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of East Coast Rams. I'm your host, Ashton, here with the awesome Zach Mayer. How are you doing, Zach?
Oh, it's good. I mean, it's been a couple weeks since we've been able to chit chat, so I'm glad to be on and able to, talk some good Rams stuff.
Yeah, a lot has been going down. We'll first start with some more draft-related stuff, and then we'll kind of go into our predictions for the season as the schedule did drop a few days ago. So going into the draft, the Rams dropped a very, very cool draft trailer. Had Dennis Quaid as Kroenke, Scott Eastwood as Sean McVay. Just a lot of big names, and there some of the players were in there too. What were your kind of impressions of this? I thought it was a pretty cool, small little thing they did because, we were waiting, it felt like a few days for our draft picks.
I mean, this team this is the Hollywood team. I mean, they don't have a draft pick in the first two rounds, so they're definitely out night one and night two. So, or I guess they picked super late into late night two. But no, this was awesome. I mean, they could have got actors to play all the guys, but I was really excited that they didn't, and that they did bring in Stafford, Cup, Ramsey was in there. Terrell Burgess was in there, Van Jefferson, Higbee was in there, Cup was in there. It was great. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I think everyone was pretty surprised. I think the whole league was pretty surprised that's what they pulled off, and I think a lot of that ended up showing. And we'll talk about this, towards the end, but when the NFL schedule was released, a lot of teams were trying to make these similar plays of video releasing of their schedules.
Yeah, Chargers had a pretty cool one that I liked. So let's kind of start going more heavily into the draft itself. And as you know, Zach, the Rams didn't pick until I think a year into the draft. So interesting thing is, coming into the draft, the Rams have lost Austin Corbett, and we also lost Andrew Whitworth, the retirement. So we all knew O-line was going to be something that we had to address somewhere in the draft. Now, Rams fans the last few years have been kind of, I wouldn't say abused Zach, but very used to letdown with the Rams drafting O-linemen very high, at least in the last 2 or 3 drafts. But the Rams go with Logan Bruss, or the Bruss bus or Bruss train. A really, really competent pick. I watched, I believe, 2 or 3 Wisconsin games this year, and he always was someone who just never let up a lot of pressure. Just doing great job against like Aiden Hutchinson, some top tier talent. So overall, I thought it was a solid pick. I think he will start at right guard, and someone that the fact that you're still there around 104, I think they got good value there.
Oh, for sure. And kind of reading some of the interviews after the draft, it was kind of like the Rams were kind of thinking about even moving up a little bit and trading with Cleveland to get a pick sooner, and whether that was to get somebody else or to actually get Logan at an earlier pick. But they were confident at their 104 that hopefully that he would still be around. I was kind of surprised that they picked an offensive lineman, and again, um, it always has to do with what you see afterwards, and I think after the draft it makes perfect sense that why they picked an offensive lineman first round. I thought they were going to go for more of a corner position. I just thought that that was where we really saw some of the deficiencies within the defense. But when when we get down the line, we see the reasons why they decided to go with somebody else. And again, we had Coleman Shelton, who we just re-signed. We still have Bobby Evans there as well as for depth in the O line. So, like I said, I'm not shocked, and I'm pleased with the pick that they did, but I was surprised they didn't go for more of the corner position.
Hmm. I'm not necessarily surprised. I think they had to go O line pretty early, especially with who left, wanting to keep quality up there to protect Stafford, because this was one of the few times Stafford has had a top five O line. I think first time ever in his career he had a top 10 O line. If I'm not mistaken, but they go for another Wisconsin O lineman. This is the third the Rams have on their roster now. It's just something about Wisconsin produces linemen that the Rams really like. They like how they have a run scheme, but they make their O linemen very versatile. Rob Habenstein is also from Wisconsin, and does a great job. Been a starter for us ever since he came in to the league, and I feel like Bus is going to follow the same kind of trajectory. So, really good pick there.
For
Let's
sure.
move. Yeah, let's move on to a need that you said, cornerback, that the Rams did address with their second pick in Jacoby Durant. And I will say, as someone who lived in South Carolina for a pretty long time and watched a good amount of South Carolina football, mostly the Gamecocks, but I do watch a good amount of Clemson, good amount of Coastal Carolina. Jacoby Durant, I am very, very interested to see how he does in the NFL. He is a great player. He's always jumped out. He's a smaller school kid, so didn't know if the Rams would go for him, especially this high. But really, the Rams and their secondary picks, uh, they've been great. Outside of a few here and there, the Rams have really hit on most of their secondary picks, and Jacoby Durant definitely has a lot of that high motor functionality, a lot of good measurables they look for, and he's very smart. So hopefully he can transfer all those skills into the NFL level. I think he's an improvement on our third and fourth cornerbacks instantly. I think I almost want to say he has a chance at the starting role over Troy Hill.
Really? Now,
Yeah.
I don't think that I can't say the same thing, only because I feel like the Rams, went out of their way to bring him back into the fold. Someone who knows the defense very well, who played at a really good level while he was here. So I don't think he'll be. I don't know. I could see them also trying to mix in three cornerbacks and trying to see how that fits into their scheme a little bit. So he might be playing on the same field, but yeah, I don't know if he's going to be a starter. A lot of when you look at these draft picks, there's only a small percentage of them that actually make it into the starting lineup. But I definitely think he brings in some depth that the Rams really needed in that backfield for the defense.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely think we'll probably be sticking to a two cornerback system because there's a other pick I will say later on that I think will also start. I actually think he'll probably start week one. So going to our next pick, our third pick was Notre Dame running back Kyron Williams. We traded up to get him. How do you feel about the trade up in general, Zach? And how do you feel about Kyron Williams? Because I am a little bit heartbroken. I wanted the Rams to go a little bit later for a running back and go after the running back from South Carolina, which the Patriots got in the sixth round. And I will say he is a stud, and I think he's going to be great for him. But the Rams picked Kyron Williams. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean it's you have to trust in the system. Any of these draft picks, you go through and you always think that there's somebody else who's going to fit the bill. But the Rams have pretty methodically thought about how each person can fit into their run scheme. And with the now departure of Sony Michelle, there's going to be these voids that are going to need to be filled. That maybe Henderson or Cam Akers can't fill those roles. And I think the Rams are definitely going to go into the three back, and I think um, bringing in Kyron Williams, I think will definitely do that. Plus, I think he has a kind of a neat story, just based on his St. Louis background.
Yeah, we definitely need a consistently healthy back, or we're going to be drafting a running back every draft.
I feel like that's the way things are going to go. I mean, it's unfortunate when that happens, but you look at teams across the league, and that they're all using two to three backs in rotation because someone gets injured, and once a running back gets injured more than two times, it's very unlikely that they're going to continue in a positive direction.
hmm Yeah, so after we pick Kyron Williams, we end up trading a future fifth for Troy Hill. Solid move by the Rams. They don't get a lot of cap. The Browns are paying most of his cap, and they got a six rounder this year for him. So if you think about it, it's like honestly, they didn't move that far back. They didn't have to pay probably around 16, 17 mil of combined salary for him, and they get him right back for a year or two. Solid move.
Yeah, and I think that's they wanted someone. They needed another corner. You lose Darius Williams, and you need someone else other than Ramsey to to be another cornerstone in that backfield. We've seen that our kind of, I mean, in our safety positions, that's also kind of been a failure point too, as far as having like real leadership. I mean, obviously Terrell Burgess um, has been great at moving up the ranks, but really they need somebody else with some veteran experience that can help that defense in the backfield. And I think that's the main reason why they got Troy Hill back, is because it was a deal that was perfect for the Rams to make, and they bring in that veteran former Ram to help the defense. He already knows the scheme. Should fit in really well, and it kind of seemed like he wanted to come back anyways from his discussions about how he worked in Cleveland.
And the fourth Rams pick was safety Quinton Lake, and I'm not gonna lie, Zach, I loved this pick. This was my favorite pick out of the entire draft. Quinton Lake is such a underrated safety. The fact that he fell to the sixth round when he was getting mocked in like second or third, high
Mhm.
second, in a lot of mock drafts, like, and not that mocks are everything, but for me, like when I've watched his tape, his instinct, how he flies to the ball, it's all impressive, and I think he's gonna start week one. I think he's gonna be the most successful player out of this entire draft for us.
I you know I, looking at kind of what he did over just the past, 11 starts in this last season, he had 54 total tackles. He tied the team lead with 3 interceptions, and led with 6 pass breakups. And again, the it was the depth in the cornerback position. The cornerback position itself, we had good players, but when one person went down, we started getting more and more players down. With the safety position, we saw what we had to do. I mean, we had to go get a retired player to come back because that's all they could do in the playoff situation. So it's they needed more people in the safety position. And Taylor Rapp, he's had his ups and his downs. And I'm unsure if he's going to be I don't think he's going to be the future with the Rams. And they need to really look at that position. And I think, just like you said, I think Quentin Lake really fits that mold for the Rams scheme.
Yeah, the Rams, I would say out of any position, tell me if you disagree with me, Zach. Safety is their best position drafting.
Oh
They
yeah,
draft safety the best.
I think I don't disagree with that. I think it's good looking over the last several years. I think they do a really job at drafting them. And they don't have to keep a safety, but being able to draft them into the scheme and being able to utilize that player while they have them, and then continue to use the draft to bring in more people, um, is something that I'm enjoying watching.
So, with the fifth pick in the NFL draft, the Rams pick Georgia cornerback Darian Kendrick. He was a former Clemson wide receiver turned DB who had off the field issues, transferred Georgia. Had some really, really solid statistics. I am, you could say, a pretty good Georgia fan, so I did watch a good amount of his games, and he kind of reminds me of the Jones pick from last year. Someone who, didn't test well, especially with speed, but he has all the instincts. He's very smart. He knows where to go to play the ball. He knows how to read the cornerback or quarterback, and just overall underrated player because of off the field issues and pure speed. I think he moves faster than what he tested.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know the details of what his off the field issues were, but looking to people who've had similar things come to the Rams, and they've um, succeeded very well in that organization. So whatever either mistakes he made or whatever scuffles that happened during that time period, hopefully that's here and done. And again, he's filling a need, especially in that depth position.
So, next two picks, in my opinion, Zach, are kind of just dart throws and good dart throws. I think both of these players, from all the tape I've seen after draft, seem solid potential players to make the roster. Hopefully, they do well in camp. We have Montana State outside linebacker Daniel Hardy, another kind of like small school superstar. The Rams kind of draft at outside rusher to hopefully see if something sticks out of the group of guys they're kind of assembling there, to be kind of on the opposite side of Leonard Floyd. Any comments on him?
No, like you said, like these last kind of few picks, it's one of those things where I hope something sticks, and I hope that they're able to you know get into the NFL and actually do well for the Rams. But like I said, a lot of these players, I'm kind of just going into it as I don't know if I'm going to see them on the first or second depth position.
Mhm. And then the Rams get safety Russ East, another safety to kind of bolster their numbers and take into camp and hopefully get someone who can be provided depth.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing all these people, all these players play and get the opportunity to play. I think we'll see assuming they make the roster, we'll see a lot of them play in the preseason, which really gives them the biggest way to shine and to get into an active participant in the regular season.
Hmm. And then the second to last pick was Michigan State offensive tackle AJ Akuri. So didn't watch any Michigan State games. They were a solid team last year, and we'll see if he can make it out of camp. Again, 7th round picks are really basically undrafted free agents you want to lock down for camp. That's how I look at him.
Yeah, I agree.
Hmm. So moving on to undrafted free agents. The Rams signed a few notable ones. Jaron McVay, I am butchering that. 6-year senior, 48 career targets led up in his entire 6 years, 99 tackles, 4 for a loss, and 3 interceptions last year. Solid stats. Added a kicker, Cameron Dicker. The social media team would have a blast if he ends up winning the kicking uh, for some weird reason. It won't happen, but Dicker the kicker would be interesting.
Hmm. I'm interested in this because they didn't pick a kicker, which I am semi surprised that they didn't. But I do understand why they didn't. But I'm really looking forward to the kicking competition. Or well, I guess this is a kicker, not a punter. So I've been looking forward to a punter. Why didn't we pick a punter? Or did we pick a punter?
I think he's a punter. I
Oh,
think that's
punter. Okay.
yeah.
So that's a little quirk in our notes. But anyways, I'm really interested in the punting kickoff or the punting dueling that's going to take place. Losing Johnny Hecker is not a huge blow, especially since as the
The
years have
last two
kind of
years
the
has
last 2 years
been
have been rough.
yeah.
But a punter, when our offense isn't striving at its 100%, the kickers or the punter is super important on making sure that the offense coming, from the other team, is in a as worst position as they possibly can. And so, this is a position that I'm going to be circling to kind of keep an eye on. Kind of a just because it's just going to be an unknown with getting the Giants, right? Is that who we got? The Giants punter?
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
just going to be interested to see how that's going to work out and who will take that spot.
yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest here. I do think punter will be more important than most fans think. We face a lot of good defenses this year. Um, so even though I do think our offense is going to be even better than last year, weirdly enough, um, yeah, we'll see who wins that punting battle. I'm a little surprised they didn't try to draft a punter, but punters went really early this year. I think a punter got drafted in the 4th round, which is a little ridiculous. So like this was a bad year to need to draft a punter because everyone took one early on.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was the year of the good punters, right?
Yeah, you're the good punters. So that's the Rams draft class and undrafted draft class. I know we missed a few undrafted guys, but really, camp can be unpredictable. So we'll cover camp and we'll do a podcast and kind of talk about breakouts while we're doing other stuff in the next few weeks and months and update you guys on our opinions on that.
Yeah. Any other last takeaways before we move into the schedule?
No. I do overall give this draft grade I would say A minus. I overall really enjoy this draft. Compared to last year, I thought last year's was a little bit more of like a B minus, C plus type of draft year. This draft I was really happy with, especially given where our picks were.
Yeah, I'm happier than I was in the previous years, and only because we didn't really focus too much on offensive weapons, and that's because we don't really need too many offensive weapons. I mean, even last year, we got Tutu Atwell, which again, that's never a dig at him that he is not a good player, things like that. It's just the Rams I don't think needed Tutu Atwell at that time. And so I'm really interested to see how they play this year. I'm glad, we only picked up, the running back, which is very understandable on why they did that. So, other than that, I think it did really well. I don't know how to grade a draft, but to me, I think they did a really good job.
Mhm. So, let's go over the schedule drop. Yeah, some notable games. The Rams opened up the first game of the year for the NFL season against the Bills. That's going to be a tough, hard fought one. The Rams play at the Buccaneers. Uh, we have against the Broncos in Week 16. We have 5 primetime games. So, and we also play. Yeah, the Broncos is Christmas. So we have a lot of good, big primetime games. Zach, more time for Cooper Cup and Stafford to shine.
I mean, this is a tough schedule. I mean, when you see that the Rams have the hardest schedule, you're like, okay, sure, they're the Super Bowl champion team. But then you go through and you look at it, and man, is this a tough. I mean, if you look at it, you could potentially, if you had like a worst case scenario, I mean, you could see the worst case scenario being 9-8, which is good because they're still over 500. But there's a lot of tough battles on here, especially later in the season. Um, you know, Facing the Packers at Packers in December is going to be tough. Um, the Raiders are going to be a tough team. The Chiefs are going to be a tough team. There's a lot here that could go against the Rams if if they for some reason have a November like they did last year.
Mm-hmm. So Zach, do you want to go ahead and get into season predictions? Way too early predictions.
It is way too early, and I could give you predictions as far as now, but throughout the next couple months, once when we bring on other episodes, I kind of really want to dig into each one,
Mm-hmm.
kind of week by week prior to them, and then maybe at the end we do another preview before the season starts and kind of compare where we're at now, post draft, before training camp, and then right before either regular season or preseason, depending on how we, get all of these weeks accomplished. Um, I'm super excited. I'm excited that the Rams haven't. Well, I think a lot of people like a later bye. I just am always amazed that the Rams always have a late bye. They never have an early bye. So that's kind of nice. Also, having the 49ers done by week 8 is also very interesting and a kind of a weird move. I mean, really, we'll have the Cardinals also done by week 10. So it seems just it's a very interesting schedule. Um, but if I had to put something on it now, just based on the schedule, and I'm thinking of like best case scenario, because I do think there's a lot of games that there are a few games that I am very concerned about. Not that could be because of the weather conditions or who they're actually playing, but I'm gonna go with I think I'm gonna go with 12-5. I think that's a solid. I think that's um, a doable percentage to get you back into the playoffs and back at trying to win another Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Yeah. So as people don't know on here, I have a history in the last 3 years of almost correctly predicting the Rams uh ending kind of record, missing it always by +1, so they always do one worse, and it's been the last game of both seasons in the last 2 years that have killed me because we should have won both. But either way, we end up losing both, and I end up being wrong by one. And if that falls again, then you would end up being right because I have us going 13-4. And I do have us slumping, weirdly enough, because I did this by games, and then I looked in the months they're played, and I do have us slipping again in November. uh, I have us losing to the Panthers, the 49ers the second time, and then losing to the Raiders and Chargers.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I have us going 13-4.
All right.
So I always had to put us losing to one random team because that's such a Rams thing to do.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I know preseason doesn't count for anything, but for the preseason games, which it just took me today to find out who their matchup is against them during the preseason. Chargers, which is kind of weird that they're playing them again, but in the preseason, but whatever. The Texans, and then the Bengals, which is also very interesting that we're going to get a Super Bowl matchup in the preseason, like a Super Bowl rematch in the preseason. I think that's just kind of, even though the starters won't play at all, I will be there for that game. Even though it's preseason, it's one of the easier ones that I can get to, and
Mhm.
at least get a little bit of insight on some of these uh, uh, players who don't get to make the starting lineup, but who may have to come in at some point during the league if during the regular season if someone gets injured.
Yeah, I think the whole Chargers thing is to save money. The team doesn't have to travel,
I
and
mean,
they'll
I'm
probably
looking
do that every year.
when you look at this so they play 20, if you conclude all 20 games, including the preseason. The Rams are at home, in which you have to include the Chargers. So because even though it's the Chargers are technically the home team, they're not going
Yeah,
to get,
the
just like the Bengal when they were in the Super Bowl. They're getting their locker room, they're getting their sideline. Like nothing is changing other than maybe the person who announces the call, like who's the announcer in the stadium. That's really going to be the only big difference. But I think it's, let's see, one, two,
the
three, four,
Rams will also have fan advantage too.
so 12 of those games are in SoFi Stadium,
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy. So other than the 49ers game, which I know that we've had some trouble in the stadium with 49ers fans. Because the games are so early on, I'm hoping that they're not as bad. Um,
Cowboys one, I think, will be another game where I think they're gonna have a majority fans there.
I'm worried about the Raiders. That's the one.
Um, yeah,
Las
yeah.
Vegas is not that far. Um, and even though they weren't there for that long, but I mean, the LA market has been split for a long time. Um, because when the Rams, and not including the Chargers, because I don't know how many actual LA fans are Chargers fans, but from looking at the LA market, they were split between the 49ers, really the 49ers and the Raiders for the longest time. And so I would agree with you. Cowboys fans, they flock in numbers too. They're really well traveled team. But
Mhm.
I would be really concerned about Week 14 with the Raiders, which I know that's one of the picks you said that they could there they may lose to.
Mhm. Yeah. So ironically, I have us losing 4 home games and winning
That's
every away game. I just realized that.
the Packers away game is the only one that really, because that's
Well,
the only one that
technically, if you count the Chargers, we're losing a away game, but again, we'll have majority fans in the Chargers
yeah.
game.
So while we're on here, I mean, honestly, we're kind of getting through our rundown a lot sooner than we normally do. The one game that I do want to quickly, the Broncos. All right, they get Russell Wilson. Why are they such a threat right now? Why is it seeming like everyone is now that Russell Wilson's joined the Broncos team, now they've become this elite team again? Like, is
I
I
think it has to do with the fact that you had Tom Brady and then Stafford in back-to-back seasons go to a new team, and the team for the most part is like way more competitive and on a different level. That and the fact that the Broncos have had solid rosters, especially on defense in the last 3 years. Their offense has just been a complete cluster of an offense. So it remains to be seen if they offensively, even with Russell Wilson, can do good, because their offensive line has still been, you could say, somewhat suspect. Um, it's better than the Seattle line, but I don't know about how much. And Wilson has shown kind of he struggles a lot when he has pressure in his face, and teams have shown if you can just constantly put him under pressure, he's not able to just throw Hail Marys to DK Metcalf.
Hmm.
And he does have good wide receivers to throw to, like Jerry Judy, that he needs time to do. So I think that's why.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Just thought I would, you know, chime that in while we're doing it because, like I said, I'm kind of going through these and kind of trying to plan how do I think they're going to come out. And the Broncos, I don't see how they're going to do amazingly well with just adding Wilson, but we'll
Yeah, I
digress.
think I had us losing to the Broncos, not necessarily because the Broncos more than anything else. I think we'll like squeak a game against the Packers by like a end game field goal. We'll all be happy, and then we'll just like have a slugfest against the Broncos and lose it. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's a very like the Rams have certain trends that I noticed throughout the season. They struggle in November. They typically, after having a very close away game, when they will end up losing at home in weird fashion. And I just feel like that's something that will happen. I'm going with my gut.
Fair enough. Fair enough. How do you feel about Christmas? That's the Broncos
Uh,
game. So,
yeah, I don't feel like it should be played on Christmas. I'm fine with Christmas Eve.
mhm.
I'll watch it, but still, you know.
I mean, for the East Coast fans, I'm glad that it's the 4 o'clock game because I feel like, that time I it kind of just goes back to like Thanksgiving too. Like Thanksgiving has always been like had that football mentality to it, and I don't think it ever takes away from the holiday and kind of the meaning behind it. Um, but it is something that can get the family again together because again, like in my family, football is kind of a big deal. And so it's fun to watch even if it's not your team. It's fun to have in the background, but it gives you a little bit something more to kind of root for on those holidays. But I thought it was interesting. The Rams don't get to play too many holiday games, which is fine by me because like I said, I could use the break from commenting and really gluing myself to the TV during those holiday times. But
Mhm.
I do think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, as long as the Broncos aren't a complete collapse by that time in season, or uh, please don't let the Rams be that way. I really think it will probably have better ratings than NBA, because I think last year the Christmas games didn't really get. They got good ratings, but they weren't the NBA Christmas game level of
Hmm.
ratings. I believe I'm just going off of memory here. Uh, so I do think that game will probably have a good chance of beating the NBA games ratings wise. So we'll see. Anything else, Zach?
I think that's it for me for now. I think that's good. You got anything left?
No. If anyone has any questions or feedback, please send it to feedback at eastcoastrams.com. Please hit us with a like, uh, comment, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It definitely helps us out. Tweet about us if you want your friends to listen to us too. Our official Twitter account for East Coast Rams is at East Coast Rams, and you can also find me at Ram Ram Fan Ashton 1 and Zach Mayer at Zach Mayer. So pretty simple there. And hope you guys all have a great day.
Yeah, guys.
Rams up.
Yep, Rams up, Ramley. Peace.